The NFL Draft Combine happened this weekend, and two Boston College players absolutely killed it. We're going to talk about who they were, what they did, and where they could be ending up.
You are Locked On Boston College, your daily podcast on the Boston College Eagles, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Locked On Boston College. I am your host, AJ Black, editor and publisher of Eagle Insider, part of the 247 Sports Network. Thank you all so much for joining us today. This episode is brought to you by Nissan. Are you the kind of driver that likes to push things a little further? Ever wonder what adventure could be around the next corner? Take the Nissan Rogue, Pathfinder, or Armada and go for your next big adventure. Check them all out at Nissan USA today. Big week this weekend at the NFL Draft Combine, and for football heads out there, this is like paradise. Watching some of the best players in the world go out and do the 40-yard dash, shuttle, long jump, high jump, all those good things. This year, Boston College had two players. They had Christian Mahogany, offensive guard, and cornerback Elijah Jones there to perform. And to talk about their performances, we are joined today by Eagle Insider writer Mitchell Wolfe. Mitch, how's it going?
Going well. As you said, this is one of the favorite weekends of the year for draft heads, apart from the draft weekend itself. Just gets to see some really incredible athletes do some incredible stuff. You obviously have Xavier Worthy, wide receiver from Texas, breaking the 40-yard dash record, which was really cool to see. And then you have really the offensive line day is the coolest day because you see guys who are massive and crazy big just doing incredibly athletically elite things. And, you know, one of BC's own was among them.
So, friend of the podcast, if you were listening to us on Twitter Spaces, what was that, like 3 weeks ago? We had Christian on talking to us out of the blue. He sometimes pops up in our comment section. So we're obviously we have to admit we're a little biased for him because we want to see him do really well. Christian Mahogany out of New Jersey had his workouts on Sunday. Now, Mitch, I know you were impressed by him. What did you see?
Yeah, I mean, I think going into the combine, I didn't have crazy high expectations for Christian Mahogany because when I watch him, I feel like he is a good but not elite athlete. He's got good feet. He moves around well, but it doesn't really like jump off the tape at you, I would say. And I would say maybe that's because he's wearing pads, because at the combine, when he wasn't wearing those pads, he put up some elite numbers. So of course now I cannot find them. I had them pulled up before, but now they're stuck in another place. But so the one stat I like to use for the combine measurements and all the pro days, everything is called relative athletic score, which is made by Kent Lee Platt on Twitter. He's at MathBomb, and it's this really cool formula he does where he contextualizes all the combine drills and makes them size adjusted. So if you have a really small guy, or if you have like a really big player doing good athletic numbers, it gives you a better score. So the funny thing about Christian is that when I was watching his numbers come in and watch him do these drills, they started appearing to be exceptionally similar to another former BC offensive lineman in Zion Johnson, who I always kind of considered Zion to be, he was that elite athlete. So it was cool to see Christian kind of match some of his numbers. So in the 40-yard dash, which again, you can quibble about how important that is for offensive linemen, Christian put up a 5.13 official time, and then a 1.74 10-yard split, that's more important for the bigger positions. And both of those numbers were in, really great numbers, at least the 85th percentile for guys that size. And then Christian also had elite elite jump numbers. He had a 32.5-inch vertical, which is in the 96th percentile, and a broad jump of 9 feet and 1 inch, which is the 91st percentile. So all great numbers there. He ended up doing the agility drills, and his shuttle time. I was actually DMing with him earlier, and he said that he didn't get the shuttle time he necessarily wanted, but he was really just out of energy because the combine, even though you're only running the drills once or twice, you're up really early in the morning and you're just doing a lot of stuff, so you're pretty fatigued. So he said his shuttle time wasn't what he wanted, and the same thing with the 3-cone, which was a 7.86, which was only in the 68th percentile. Sorry, 7.81. and it's in the 68th percentile. So really good numbers if you put those into the RAS formula and it spits out the number, which is out of 10. Christian finished with a 9.58 unofficial, which is, according to Ken Lee Platts, out of the 1,445 guards that are in his system from 1987 to now, that ranks 61st out of that 1,445. So really great numbers from him. In the positional drills, I thought he looked really good. Those are not, some of those aren't going to be the best for him because, again, like I think his strength and his power are his best skills as opposed to his movement skills. And in some of the drills, I thought some of his footwork was a bit heavy. But it's kind of hard to tell just sometimes because they don't have the greatest camera angles and they're moving around a lot. But I thought he was really impressive. And I'm not sure if this really like will elevate his draft stock that much because I think people kind of have a pretty good evaluation of what Christian can be and can project him pretty easily. It's more of a matter of valuation. It's, how much do teams value a guy who's going to be a good solid guard, but it's, there are more dynamic, quote unquote, important positions in football that teams are going to want to use their higher draft capital on. I think you're muted.
Yep, I did. So I've put on the screen the RAS score in comparison between Zion Johnson and Christian Mahogany, because Mitch was talking about that. How much of a difference did you notice in is he still, would you say, like a late like an early third rounder right now?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's just good to get these numbers as good as they are. I think if he had posted some like crazy numbers, like if he had somehow gotten his 40 under 5 seconds and had elite shuttle and 3 cone drills, like maybe we're talking about a first round pick, but I still don't think so, just because the other part of it is that this is a very deep offensive line class, especially at tackle and center. And from what I've been seeing and hearing, like with the draft media and podcasts and articles and everything, Christian's just not getting mentioned with the guys that are going in the first round, the group of offensive tackles and even the interior guys like Graham Barton and Jackson Powers Johnson. I just not seeing that right now. And maybe that'll change with the combine, but I still believe that, teams, the combine doesn't influence teams' big boards as much as fans might think. And that's something that I've kind of had to adjust to, but I still think it's a really great performance. And basically like it's what we expect. I think it's more on the side of what we expected from him. If he had a really bad combine performance, then we might have to reevaluate, but really great numbers across the board. And that's just great to see from Christian.
All right. And any teams you think right now, like I saw that he had a top 30 interview with the Philadelphia Eagles. What, any other teams that like maybe jump out to you like, Mahogany might be a good fit there?
And the team that and as a Steelers fan, this pains me to say, but the team I keep going back to is the Ravens, because I think that they are going to have a need for right guard. I think they still have Kevin Zeitler, but he's getting up there in age, and they've invested some draft picks there. But Mahogany is just such a great fit for what they do on offense in terms of how much they pull their linemen, how much they use gap scheme runs, which are where he really excels. And, with that play action game and kind of the diverse offense they have, it doesn't require Christian to be kind of on this island in pass protection as much, which he's good at. It's just that he's really gets helped by run heavy play action offenses. So I think that's a good fit for him. I'm trying to think of other teams off the top of my head that run a lot of gap schemes, which I can't right now. But again, like I think that he is a solid fit for pretty much any offensive system. He can be a solid starter for pretty much any team. So it almost makes it a little harder just because he is such a well-rounded player that it's not like, I can, pinpoint him to certain teams, because I think he is very well-rounded and could be an effective starter basically anywhere.
All right. In a moment, Mitch and I are going to talk about Elijah Jones, who vanished a bit at the end of the season for BC. We're going to look at what he can do, what he showcased, and are there any concerns heading into the season, into this draft with Jones? We'll get into all of that in just a moment. Are you the kind of driver that likes to push things a little further? Ever wonder what adventure could be around the next corner? Our friends at Nissan have a lineup of SUVs with the capabilities to take your adventure to the next level. The 2024 Nissan Rogue is perfect for city drives and great escapes with class exclusive Google built in. It's always updating your assistant to call for almost anything. Gone are the days of connecting your phone. Google Assistant, Google Maps, and Google Play Store are right in your 12.3 HD touchscreen infotainment system. The 24 Rogue is the perfect midsize crossover for your next adventure. And I'm a big fan of the Pathfinder. It has room up for up to 8 and expansive cargo capacity and advanced availability with 4x4 capability. So take the Nissan Rogue, Pathfinder, or the Nissan Armada and go find your next big adventure. Shop Nissan USA today. Locked on BC. This is AJ Black, and we are talking the NFL Draft Combine. And the second player that BC had was Elijah Jones. Now, Jones, as all BC fans remember, played very well in his last game with BC that happened to be at the beginning of November against Syracuse, then disappeared. But he had a pretty good combine, and we'll talk a little bit about that in just a second. So, Mitch, let's get the elephant out of the room. What have you heard about why? Should there be reason for teams to be hesitant about Jones from what you've heard?
So I asked a very reliable source, whether they could tell me what Jones' suspension was, and B, whether it would affect his draft stock significantly. And the reason why I asked this now is because I knew that if I asked this during the season or right after it, I wasn't going to get an answer from this source. So I wanted to give it some time, kind of let things settle a bit. But when he was running and doing the drills, I was like, okay, this is going really well. So is the off field really going to be a concern? And the source that's very well connected to the program told me that, one, they couldn't tell me what the suspension was. And they couldn't tell me because they didn't know. They couldn't tell me because they weren't allowed to. And the second part was that it should not significantly affect his draft stock, whatever the reason for the suspension was. So on the one hand, that's good that whatever happened is not going to be a significant factor in terms of affecting Jones' ability to make money as a professional football player. And it does suck that it affected BC's season in terms of his suspension. So that's what I can say. But in terms of the actual combine, like I said, Jones had a stellar day. I was, again, a little concerned about, okay, like what kind of numbers are we going to see from Jones? Because he's got this kind of lanky build. So you think those guys can run fast, but sometimes their gait and getting out of the stance is a little tricky. But he really answered a lot of those questions. And, coming in terms of his size, 6'1.5", 185 pounds. 185 is a good weight for Jones's build. His weight has kind of been all over the place, at least what BC lists him at. So getting to 185 is solid. You can play in the NFL at that weight these days. 31.5-inch arms, pretty solid for a corner, especially one who wants to be aggressive at the line of scrimmage. And then Jones was stellar in the jumps. He had a 42.5-inch vertical, which is in the 99th percentile. I think I looked it up, and it's tied for the 26th highest vertical in the history of the combine. So that's incredible. And then a 10'11" broad jump, which excellent, very good. That's in the high 90s percentile wise. Kind of flew under the radar because there was a safety from Texas Tech who jumped 12 feet and 2 inches, which is the second longest broad jump in combine history, which is crazy. And he was a foot further than anybody else in the combine this year. So that was just nuts. And then Jones does the 40, and he ran a 4.4. I believe it's a 4.44 official. They actually took 100th of a second off of the official time. So very good number. I was concerned, like, okay, if he gets into 4.5s, especially in the high 4.5s, that's going to be a problem. But mid 4.4s, perfect. His 10-yard split of 1.56 was a little slow, which again, that's kind of the length of his body. Just kind of you can't get up to speed as quick because you are taking longer strides. Once you do, you're moving though, and that's exactly what happened with him. And then he did not participate in the agility drills, the 3-cone and the short shuttle, which didn't shock me at all. Again, pretty much almost no players do, especially like defensive players, do them anymore because they do have a pretty strong correlation with your success. So if you have a bad score, especially because they do those drills at the very end of the day. So as I was talking with Christian, guys are tired. They're pretty sure they're not going to put up their best time, so they don't want to do it. They'll just wait till pro day. So he didn't do those. And again, for guys who are taller and lankier like that, they usually struggle with those because you're taller, lankier, so you have a bit of a struggle changing direction, moving without having like hitches in your movement when you're trying to make quick changes of direction. So that was kind of the issue for that. But other than that, great day from him. Looked really good in the positional drills. I think the thing I'm very impressed with Jones is that his footwork is very controlled, and it's patient but not slow. The one drill where you have to backpedal, run forward, backpedal, and run forward. I think they call it the W drill. And he looked really good in that. One thing I think the reason why he's so good in these is because unlike a lot of other cornerbacks, based because of just how college football is played these days, Jones has a lot more experience truly backpedaling from the line of scrimmage as opposed to guys now who play farther off. They play kind of where their hips are already turned. So it's like perpendicular to the line of scrimmage. So they don't have to do the full hip turn to turn around and run with the receiver. And Jones has a lot of experience doing that. So he looked really good in those drills. He had some inconsistencies catching the ball, which it was funny because I tweeted about it, and then he made a really impressive catch and then went through the gauntlet drill where they run down a yard line and they have quarterbacks throw at you from opposite sides of the field, and he caught all those balls. And again, we saw Jones really improve his ball skills this year, and that was impressive. But that was kind of it's like a new thing that he's added to his game, which is great. But yeah, I think that as long as the interviews went well and he, answered the questions about the suspension well, then I have no reason to believe that he shouldn't be a top 150 pick. Maybe if the right team is there, he sneaks into the end of the third round. I'd be a little skeptical of that because, again, the cornerback class this year is super deep. If you look at a lot of the other sites that cover the draft, I think PFF has 15 cornerbacks in their top 100. Dane Brugler has 12 in his top hundreds, and Jones isn't in either of them yet. So there's just a ton of corner depth this year. But maybe if one team just really likes his play style and it fits their scheme, I've seen more surprising things in the NFL draft than, Elijah Jones being a top 100 pick.
So here's a question. Do you think that either Mahogany or Jones will work out at the pro day, or do you think they're done?
So I think they will do positional drills in terms of, the ones that aren't timed, where coaches will ask them to do certain things. Like I mentioned with Jones, like backpedaling and, working on covering receivers like that. I don't think that either of them will kind of redo the drills that they did at the combine. Maybe Mahogany redoes the 3-cone if he really wants to, but he also told me he's not going to do the bench press because the bench press takes place on Monday today. If you're listening to this on Monday morning. And I think the reason why, and he didn't tell me this is just my guess, is that he probably spent a lot of time trimming weight, getting his weight down so he could have really good numbers in the drills. And now he's going to spend time working on putting that muscle and size back on his frame so he can be ready for rookie camp and that. And he could do the bench press maybe, but the thing with Christian is that power and strength has never been a question about his game. So why risk, training in the bench press where you could have a really bad injury where you mess up your pectoral and that could really mess up your rookie year. So I would be somewhat surprised if he did at the pro day with Jones. Maybe he does the agility drills at his pro day, but I think teams will be more concerned about, how does he look in the positional drills and all that kind of stuff.
All right. Any other last thoughts before you head out, Mitch?
No, I think I'm all good. It was a very exciting weekend as always at the combine. Really cool stuff. And I think that it was just great to see, and again, another year where, we're seeing BC guys that are kind of maybe a little bit under the radar in the process, but, as people get more eyes on them, they understand that these are some really good football players and that BC is very consistent in churning out NFL talent.
All right, Mitch, where can people find your work? Because I know you've been busy with Bill O'Brien stuff over at Eagle Insider.
Yeah, you can find me at Mitchell T. Wolfe, WOLFE on Twitter. Tweeting about the combine the whole weekend, and I'll actually have an article coming out recapping. Kind of going to be repeating a lot of stuff I said, but if you prefer it in written form, it'll be there. It'll have some video clips from the combine as well. And then this week I should have an article coming out that is talking about Tim Lewis's defense and kind of what. And it was kind of the odd podcast we had last week where I talked a lot about that. So it'll have some pictures, clips, and some more detailed explanations of how Lewis is going to change his defense and what it'll look like going forward.
All right, Mitch, thank you so much for joining us. In a moment, I'm going to be back to talk about recruiting because Bill O'Brien has landed his first commitment as a head coach at Boston College. You're going to want to hear more about who that is, and I'll give you more details in just a moment. Football's over, but FanDuel is torching right now with college basketball in the NBA. So you can get your buckets with your first bet on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. It's $150 if your bet wins. Bet on all your favorite NBA teams with quick bets, live same-game parlays, exclusive props, and more. I don't know what the spread was for that Celtics Warriors game. I don't know if anyone caught that. Celtics were up like 40 points at halftime. And if you've been listening to my ad reads, you know I've been saying I'm going with the Celtics on a lot of these things. And I hit that one big time today because the spread wasn't even close to what the final score was. Now, you too, you can hit that as well. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and shoot your shot. With FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of the NBA. Locked On Boston College, AJ Black here. We had Mitch on earlier to talk about the draft combine, but there's so much news. We're doing football today, folks, and I wanted to get in. I want to congratulate the hockey team. Great game by Jacob Fowler on Sunday as they win 1-0 to beat UNH. To earn their Hockey East title, regular season title. They are the number one team in the Hockey East. Congratulations. What a season so far for them. Hardware season is just starting. Trophy season is just starting for the Eagles. We'll have more talk, and hopefully we'll have BC Hockey Blogger on at some point this week to talk more about that team. But also on Sunday, I got a text message, and I was like, the BC got a new commitment, and it was not a class of 25. It's a class of 26. Their first commitment in that class, and it's a local kid. His name is Marcelino Antunez, Jr., an offensive lineman out of Catholic Memorial. Now, this is a school that's brought on Max Tucker, Jaden Skeet. They've got quite a few guys that have come through this school. The running back, Datrell Jones. And they've brought talent that have been elite talent as well. We saw Boubacar Traore go to Notre Dame. We saw Gerby Lambert go to Notre Dame. Antunez has elite size, and he's 16 years old. A kid is 6'7" already, only 280 pounds. If you've seen a picture of him, they're kind of hard to find because he's not really on the recruiting sites yet, and I'm dying to talk to him. He's only 280 pounds. He looks like he could put on another 35, 40 pounds. If he does that, this kid could be a real big deal because he's got huge reach too. I was looking up some of his numbers, and what he can do in terms of his size is very, very impressive. He has a 7-foot wingspan. I think it was 83 inches I saw. So this kid has the very, very high ceiling. Boston College is his only offer, but honestly, this is the perfect first commitment for BC, for Bill O'Brien. Because what did he say in his opening press conference? He wanted to build a wall around Boston College, around New England, excuse me. Catholic Memorial is one of the most talented schools in New England. They produce good talent every single year. A 6'7" offensive tackle that could blossom into a big-time recruit, getting him early is big. This reminds me of the Traore recruitment because Boubacar Traore, I believe before he got his 4-star rating, he had no offers. Like, no one wanted him. And he was from Catholic Memorial, too. He committed to BC on the spot early. And then his recruitment blew up, and Halfley couldn't keep him, and they lost him to Notre Dame. The hope is Antunez is going to like what he sees with O'Brien, and this gives you your first real good local kid. Because I'm telling you, folks, there is some really good talent coming out of New England this next couple of years, including 2025, that Bill O'Brien is going to want to target. Antunez is a good one. And I saw folks not getting excited about this one just because he doesn't have a ranking yet. Don't get that way yet. Remember, he is class of 26. Folks don't know who he is yet. The recruiting sites haven't caught on to him. But a kid that size with that kind of wingspan, he seems like a very, very intriguing recruit. And this is a good start. Now, I've been talking to the staff. I'm the Eagle Insider. I have my sources, right? Practice is going to start March 11th. That's the first day of practice. And I've heard from folks who know from Friends of the Heights that I think the spring game is April 13th or 14th. I don't have it right in front of me. They're going to have a lot of visitors. And I've been putting some up on Eagle Insider, but it's going to be busy. It's going to be a busy time. And you're going to start to see names pop up that maybe you haven't seen on social media that BC has been heavily invested in. I just put up, they're involved with a kid from New Jersey, a 4-star wide receiver, number, I think, 135 in the country. That would be as good as any recruit BC ever got under Jeff Hafley. And BC's in the top 5 of this kid. He's setting up a visit with BC as we speak. So things are starting to pick up on that recruiting trail. This was a good first start, and we'll see how his ratings go, because I think that could be interesting to see if, like, this is a kid that's going to get a lot of attention, and then we'll see if Bill O'Brien can keep him here. It's a long time until the 2026 signing period. We haven't even gotten to the 2025 yet. BC has one commitment for next year so far, so he's got a lot of work to do. And we're going to be here at Locked On BC talking all about that. On tomorrow's show, I got to get into basketball again, who had a miserable game on Saturday. I'm going to talk about Earl Grant and what I think of the program. We got to talk hockey. We've got so much coming up, and we're going to be here all day, every day this week. 5 days of episodes this week, packed with Boston College sports. You're not going to find this kind of coverage anywhere else. I'm going to have good guests. I'm going to be giving you my analysis. You want to make it on Boston College wherever you get your podcast, and put on that little bell so you know when we go live. And you know when there's a new episode, so you listen to it. Help us by liking this and sharing this with your friends. Thank you all for making Locked On Boston College your team every day.